Good morning, Santa Clarita. Welcome in and happy Friday. Happy wet Friday out there. You're listening to KHTS, your hometown station, 98.1 FM and 1220 AM. This is SCVi and I Lead Schools Eye on the Valley. I am your host, Matt Watson, and our show Eye on the Valley, as I said, is brought to you by SCVi and I Lead Charter Schools. We are a network of free public charter schools. That's right. When I say charter, you say free. We are a network of free public charter schools with campuses in Castaic, there on the west side of town, Agua Dulce here on the east side of town, up in Lancaster. Yeah, you got me. I know you can hear me up in Lancaster. We've also got a fully accredited online school. Our online school is just continues to grow in leaps and bounds, as does our home study program. That is called iLead Exploration. I tell you what, why don't you pop on over to ileadschools.org and check us out. We've got something on every single one of our 6 schools. Each one has its own location, its own different model. So regardless of the educational model or needs that your child may have, we've got something that is a perfect fit for them. So yeah, check us out at ileadschools.org, where we keep our eye on education here in Santa Clarita and across the nation. But like the show says, we keep our eye on the valley as well, bringing you everything that you need to know about what's what here in the valley. Yeah, and what you need to know this morning is that it's a little wet outside. You need to make sure that you leave early, you drive slow, you drive safe this morning. You want to make sure, you know what? Forget that. Stay home. You don't need to be out in this. What you need to do is pour yourself another cup of coffee and tune in for a couple of hours. Listen to Eye on the Valley. Join us. We've got an amazing show for you. It's, just like that. It is all of a sudden the holiday season. It was summer last weekend and winter is here this weekend. The cold weather is here. The rain is here. It's getting dark at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And we are lighting up Main Street this weekend. I don't know how they're going to do that with all this rain going on, but maybe we can check in a little bit later on and figure out what's happening. We've got another great show for you today. Producer Sarah's put together just a phenomenal show. Coming up in hour number 1, we've got the directors of SCVi here to talk about an amazing event coming up later on this morning on their campus. And everybody's coming. I mean, everybody's coming. And you can come too. We've got our next installation of College Corner. That's where we bring in our counselors from iLead to keep you informed about everything that you should be doing to make sure that your child gets into the best college for them. And the last time we talked, that's what we talked about. We talked about, there is no one best college, but there is one best college for your kid. It's about finding the right match. But yeah, so we'll have our next installation of College Corner. Today we're going to be talking about the dreaded FAFSA. That's right, FAFSA. You've heard it. You're scared of it. You don't know how to fill it out. But Kathy Rosenast is going to be here to help. And then in hour number 2, we are commemorating kind of a somber anniversary today. We are commemorating the 6th anniversary of the Saugus High School shooting. Yeah, 6th anniversary is today. It's already been 6 years, and this morning we're going to talk to Mia Treda. Mia is one of the survivors of that tragic day at Saugus High School, and I chatted with her a little bit yesterday afternoon. She's going to be calling in hour number 2. We're going to see how she's doing and some of the choices that she's made moving forward in her life in response to that day, as well as in spite of that day. So we're looking forward to that. So yeah, it's a busy show. It's certainly going to be a little bit heavier. We try to keep it light, but we got some serious stuff going on today. But also some exciting motivational stuff. You're not going to want to miss today's show. You're not going to want to miss a minute. So let's get to it. My first guests are the amazing school leaders at SCVi Charter School on the west side of town, just off of Newhall Ranch Road. Martha Spansel-Pellico, she earned her bachelor's degree in English and secondary teaching credential from the Master's College right here in town, and her master's degree in educational leadership and administrative credential from the University of Laverne. She's got 20 years experience in school administration or close to it, and all of her 24 years in education experience are at local schools right here in Awesome Town. Her partner, Chad Powell, earned his bachelor's degree in teaching credential from Fresno State. That's right, he's a Bulldog. He got his master's degree in administrative credential from Cal State Northridge. And like Martha, he has served at local schools for over 20 years with extensive administrative experience, and the two of them comprise that powerhouse team that is the leadership at SCVi. Martha, Chad, welcome back to Eye on the Valley.
Hey, Matt, thank you.
So glad you guys can join us. I appreciate it. I know things are definitely different on a school campus on a rainy day, and so I appreciate you all setting aside a little bit of time for us. So for our listeners who are not as familiar with SCVi, I have two questions. First question is for those listeners, where the heck have you been? SCVi has been around coming up on 20 years here pretty soon. You guys have been operating since 2008. Question for you two, what makes SCVi different than a traditional district school?
Hey, Matt, I think that's a great question. What really makes us different is our focus. We get to be in kind of that nice spot in between a regular public school and a private school. We have all of the accountability pieces of a public school in terms of teacher credentialing requirements, standards-based instruction and testing, but we also get a great deal of latitude on our curriculum and what we decide is important and what lane that we want to be in, more like a private school. So you really do get kind of this private school experience at this public school price.
I love that, and we've talked about that before, and it's more than just the autonomy that gives you that private school experience. For example, and let's dive into some of the things that you offer your learners there at SCVi. I want to mention to our listeners that we are, in fact, a TK through 12th grade charter school, which makes us the only comprehensive school in the Santa Clarita Valley that is a free public school. So SCVi has been offering dual enrollment for your high school age learners. Well, gosh, as far as our high school goes back, pretty much. But you're putting a little bit different flavor on it here coming up pretty soon. So let's start off with dual enrollment. Can you tell our listeners some of the benefits of dual enrollment, which is where students are taking high school classes and college courses at the same time?
Some of the benefits I think that really that is important for our kids to take advantage of is the fact that they can try out a rigorous course, a college course, get college credit in the comfort of their own campus with their friends. So that's part of the benefit, as well as they get an early start on college and getting those gen ed courses out of the way.
Right, exactly. And that can also work along with their high school requirements for graduation.
Okay, so they're actually getting high school requirements taken care of through their college courses?
Right, they're
Correct.
able to kind of double dip there.
I love that. Yeah, it's definitely double dip, and they're getting high school and college credit for the same classes. Martha, you mentioned that it helps prepare them for college. I remember I actually took a class when I was in high school over at COC, and then when I went off to do my bachelor's stuff, it was a lot less intimidating. I felt like I'd already been there, so that's definitely a thing. But y'all are expanding those offerings next year, right? Can you tell us what it's going to look like next year as you start to shift?
Right. So we know that we're gonna be talking a lot more about this, I think, in the weeks to come. But we're really excited about our College Connect program. Our College Connect program is going to do all the things that we've already have been doing in terms of the college work that can be done on campus, but it is really amplifying those things and really putting them into a few different pathways that are going to help our learners as they navigate through. We're going to be talking about a biliteracy pathway. We're going to talk about getting closer to your associate's degree before you ever graduate from high school, as well as our aerospace pathway, which is the only pathway and CTE pathway like it in the entire valley.
Chad, I'd like to drill down a little bit on that. You mentioned you have an aerospace pathway, which you're right. Folks that are sort of in the know when it comes to secondary education know what career technical education pathways are. You've got an aerospace CTE pathway. Can you explain to our listeners a little bit more about what a pathway is? What does that mean to be enrolled in a pathway in high school?
Really what it is it's just a series of classes that can give you experiences that can then help you if you're going to go towards that career in the university or straight into the job force or any kind of training after We're just giving you a head start and some certification that can possibly give you a leg up on some of the other people that are trying to do the same sort of thing that you're doing. And in terms of our aerospace pathway, what we did is we got together leaders from NASA and different aerospace industries. We brought them together into really it was a nice luncheon, a committee, and we asked them, we said, what is the fastest growing career area in aerospace? And what they told us is it's unmanned piloted aircraft, drones. Oh, wow. And so a big part of our CT pathway and connecting to our College Connect has to do with drones, learning about them, building them. We're even starting a drone soccer league.
I love that, and that's going to be a lot of fun. I know your kids are also able to graduate high school with a certain drone pilot certificate. Is that correct?
That's right, and that will give them the a leg up or step forward on some of the other things, because we know how competitive that post-secondary area recent high school graduates.
And again, that's what high school is for, right? Making sure that kids are prepared to go on to college, go on to career, and so you're doing everything that you can to make sure that your high school graduates from SCVi have a leg up on the competition and are ready to launch into some of those high-demand, high-paying jobs, which is what it's all about. Now,
right.
You guys have got a very special event going on your campus today. I want to get into that in a little bit, so I want to shift gears a little bit and ask some questions I would normally ask toward the end of our interview. So I've mentioned a couple times SCVi is located kind of on the west side of Santa Clarita Valley. But can you tell us who's able to attend SCVi? You're a free public charter school, but who's allowed to attend? What region do you have to live in order to be able to get to go to SCVi?
Well, we don't have an attendance area like a traditional school, so really anybody can come here. We have kids that are learners that come from the San Fernando Valley, Fillmore, Piru area, and really all over.
So as long as you can get your kid there, you can attend, right?
That's
Absolutely.
Right.
And again, it's TK through 12. I think you even send a bus out to the Piru area. That's a little bit further drive, but you send a bus out, you bring your kids out. Do you charge for that bus?
No, that bus is free for everyone.
Wow, fantastic. So free bus to the school. And then, so what's tuition like? What's it cost to attend SCVi?
Well, that's a great thing. You get all this at the rock low price of $0.
Of $0. Again, if you're not listening, SCVi is a free public charter school offering that private school education for the free public school price. So how do folks learn more? How can they come take a look and see what amazing things you're doing or potentially even enroll?
Well, there's a lot of ways. The best way is to sign up for one of our tours. We give those tours. We do group tours twice a month, I believe on the first Tuesday and the third Thursday of every month. But we never turn anyone away. So if you have a day that works for a tour, we would love to show you around. We also have community events often. In fact, today we're having one of our largest community events of the year. We're having our aerospace presentation of learning. We're opening it up to all of our families. We're opening it up to the community. Come in, take a look at our engineering, our STEM program, our aviation program. There's also a lot of art that is involved in there. Okay. And come and check it out. Talk to our teachers. It's a great day to see the school and see what we're doing.
Yeah, it's really like a science fair open house.
Oh, fantastic.
Really is.
And I want to drill down and get a little bit more detail on that. We need to take a quick commercial break, but when we get back, you're going to hear more about that event that you can attend this morning at SCVi. Remember when I told you to stay at home? It's only for a couple hours. As soon as the show wraps here, I want you to head over to SCVi and check out that aerospace open house that they've got going on. More details on that when we get back. Martha Spansel-Pellico and Chad Powell, the admin team at SCVi Charter School, joining me this morning. And they've got that very special event coming up. A little bit more when we get back. I am Matt Watson. This is SCVi, and I lead Schools Eye on the Valley. You're listening to your hometown station, KHTS. Welcome back. You are listening to KHTS, your hometown station, 98.1 FM and 1220 AM. This is Matt Watson. You are listening to SCVi, and I lead Schools Eye on the Valley. It is a little bit wet out there, so make sure that you're giving yourself some extra time. Or, you know what? It's Friday, it's wet outside, maybe you work remote, or just stay at home for the first part of the morning today. but we want you to get out the second part of the morning. We're talking about that in just a second. As a matter of fact, we're talking to the directors of SCVi Charter School. Chad Powell is with me. His partner, Martha Spansel-Pellico, had to run off. They're dealing with a rainy day schedule there at SCVi, and so while they're here talking about their school and the great things going on and the amazing invitation they've got for you this morning, they're also shifting on the fly and dealing with what a rainy day schedule looks like at a TK through 12th grade free public charter school here in Santa Clarita. Chad, thanks for sticking around. I know it's a complicated morning. Not only are you dealing with the rain, but you've got a big event going on campus.
We do.
That is really kind of central to the way you do education at SCVi. Y'all at SCVi are pioneers of project-based learning. I know the last 5, 6, 7 years, a lot of public schools and private schools been talking about project-based learning, but y'all pioneered it back in 2008, 2009, and I have not seen a school that does it as extensively or as well as you all do project-based learning. So let's do the Simon Sinek thing, Chad. Let's get to the why. Why does SCVi focus on project-based learning?
Because it's the real world, Matt. You know, when we talk about having to get things done out in the world, we're talking about projects. There really are no careers that I can think of where you are completely independent. Even writers, they end up working with a team of that. And so sometimes for schools, we create an artificial environment where your success is just based on how well you can keep to yourself and sit at your desk and do your work and move on. And then you get into the world and you were not prepared for the demands that will be on you, the communication and collaboration, to just say a couple of those. And so what we do is we couch our curriculum in really high-interest problems, which is really all a project is solving a problem. We introduce the curriculum that way, and the kids often work together in order to solve that real-world problem.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting point, Chad. You know, successful students used to be the ones that could sit at their desks, stay quiet, and keep to themselves, but I don't know of very many professions where that's the reality anymore. That was the factory line kind of style of economy, but that's not the economy we live in anymore. As you were talking about projects, I'm thinking, you know, project managers and folks that are successful project managers are the ones that really are advancing in their career. Those are the ones that are making quite a bit of money. So you're preparing your kids to do that through that real world experience. So talk to me about like testing, assessment. In project-based learning, assessment is handled a little bit differently. There isn't necessarily a test at the end of the unit. Now there may be, but not necessarily. So how do the learners, as an educator, Chad, how do you know that your students are learning?
No, that's a great question. You know, we do all types of different modalities of learning, and for some of those, we do have tests, right? We measure how well we're doing on that. But when it comes for our projects, what we have is a presentation of learning that occurs at the end. And that presentation of learning is, well, it's just what it sounds like there. We invite families, community members, other classes, adults, and the learners, the students, they present back the findings of what they've done. Usually they create some sort of artifact or some evidence that represents the work that they've done, and they present that back to the people. It helps with presentation skills. It helps with poise. Again, when we talk about developing leaders, we want the graduates of SCVi to enter into the world as leaders within their career field. And these practices, from the time these kids are in TK all the way through 12th grade, every single year they're practicing this. You can imagine the amount of experience they have going into college and career that perhaps some of their peers that are going to more traditional schools may not have had the opportunity to develop.
You're absolutely right, Chad. You know, a couple of years ago, one of our colleagues did a study and found that if a student goes to SCVi from TK through 12th grade, by the time they graduate high school, they will have given over 50, in some cases over 60 public presentations. Now, as you know, Chad, public speaking is the number one fear in adults, but it is also one of the top 5 skills that employers are looking for. Someone who can speak with a crowd, who can organize others, who can, communicate. That's pivotal in the world that we're living in. We're living in the age of communication. So again, just another way that you're preparing preparing your learners not just to succeed, but to lead. So those presentations of learning are paramount, and you got a big one going on today. Learners in grades TK through 7, all of them have a presentation today, right? Tell us about the event that you've got going on today.
Well, it's going to feel a lot like an open house, where when the families come in, they're going to receive really a map of our lower school campus, and it's going to show where the different projects and the different presentations are being held, kind of like a giant conference. And then as people and public dignitaries, and we'll talk more about that later, but we do have a few that are going to be here, and we're excited about that. Families and such come in. They're going to hear everything from rocketry and balloons. They're going to hear about jet propulsion. They're going to hear about gliders and biomimicry. It's going to be a really almost a master class, really, about aerospace and aviation, and these are going to be from 5-year-olds to 12-year-olds.
Wow, that is incredible, and all standards based, right? You're not stepping outside of the regular curriculum here.
Nope, all standards based. Yep.
Fantastic. So what was the inspiration behind, I know you touched on it a little bit, but what was the impetus behind you and Martha choosing aerospace as kind of a central theme for your curriculum TK through 7th grade?
That's a great question. Yeah, and I did touch on it for a moment, but really we know that by the time these youngest learners are our age, they're going to be possibly working in career fields that don't even exist today. And so one of the challenges of education is that we need to not only prepare for the world and the economy of today, but we need to be thinking about what is that going to look like in 20, 30, 40 years, or at least give a guess on where that might be. And one of the fastest growing areas that we see in the future economy is going to be around technology and aerospace. And that's going to involve everything from coding to engineering to everything else in between. And so if we can prepare our learners right now to move into that space, and it is a space in which no other school in the Santa Clarita Valley, or anyone I think within 20 miles of the Santa Clarita Valley, is in, and it's an industry that has historically been so important to Southern California, then we are going to once again position our learners and our graduates to be able to take advantage of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's over 70 businesses here in Santa Clarita that have an aerospace focus. So not only are you preparing for them for those high demand, high paying jobs, but jobs that keep them local, keep them right here in their hometown.
Yes. Absolutely.
I love that. And we actually heard it from a family earlier this week. I know some of our listeners are thinking it. I would love to be able to see what that looks like. You've got kids from 4 years old all the way up to 7th grade presenting on what they've learned around hot air balloons, rocketry, aerodynamics, all that different kinds of stuff. If a family's thinking, I would love to see that, how can they do that? Who is invited to come see your presentation of learning today?
Yeah, that's a good question, and the short answer is anyone that can hear this, right? Everyone. We're going to start at about 11:15 today, and we just invite anyone that wants to take a look at the school to come and check it out. And I'm impressed every day by the teachers and students here, and to give them a chance to see it as well.
Yeah, I am as well. It's always so inspiring to just kind of walk the halls and poke into the classrooms there at SCVi. There's always so many different exciting things going on. It seems like things are happening at a frenetic pace, but that's because kids are learning and they're highly engaged. So one more time, Chad, you've got a presentation of learning TK through 12th grade going on at SCVi. It is just off the Newhall Ranch Road and the 5 freeway there in southern Castaic. You're inviting the public, and you're going to have some public dignitaries out there as well. The event starts at 11:15 today?
Yeah, 11:15 to 12:15, 12:30.
11:15 to 12:15. Although I'm going to say, parents, public, if you're heading on over there, plan on getting there early because the rain is a thing. Parking may be a bit of an issue as well. So make sure that you give yourself some time so that you can sign in, because safety is paramount as well. And then that way you can get off to see what's going on in the classroom. So make sure you're there by at least 11 o'clock. Chad, I'm excited about being there. I will be over there as soon as we finish up the show. I want to ask our listeners to stick around, listen to the rest of the show, and then once you're done, you can follow me over there. Chad, thanks so much. I'll see you in a bit. You have a great weekend.
Thanks, Matt. I appreciate it.
You take care. One more time, if you're interested in attending SCVi or enrolling your children, you can check them out at ileadsantaclarita.org. ileadsantaclarita.org, a lot less complicated. Just Google SCVi. It's short for Santa Clarita Valley International. SCVi, Google them. You can call them at 661-705-4820. 661-705-4820, or check them out at ileadsantaclarita.org. You can book a tour. You can get more information. You can fill out your enrollment application. One of the things I like to tell my families is it's an enrollment hack. Remember, it costs nothing to attend. It costs nothing to apply. So fill out the application first. Then go take a tour. If you take a tour and decide it's not for your kid, that's fine. You just pull your application. No harm, no foul. But you fill out your application first, and that bumps you up a couple spots in line, because spots are definitely limited. Again, SCVi Charter School today, 11:15 to 12:15 today. You can stop by and see all the amazing things that kids are doing in transitional kindergarten through 7th grade to prepare themselves for those high-paying jobs in the aerospace field. Stick around. Coming up next, the next installment in College Corner. My friend Kathy Rosenast is going to be joining me, telling you how you can get your kids into college and succeed once they get there. On this week's episode, FAFSA. Stick around. I'm Matt Watson. You're listening to SCVi and iLead Schools Eye on the Valley on your hometown station, KHTS. And welcome back. You are listening to KHTS, your hometown station, 98.1 FM and 1220 on the AM side. I am your host, Matt Watson, and you are listening to SCVi and iLead Schools Eye on the Valley. And if you are watching us on Facebook Live, you know that I have just been joined by my co-pilot, Max. How you doing, Max? Good to see you, brother. All righty. You know, back in August, we kicked off a new recurring segment here on the show, Eye on the Valley. We're calling it College Corner. Sometimes we call it College and Career Corner. We do it as a service to the community because, you know, getting into college and getting into the right college is not an easy thing to do. We wanted to bring a different member of our counseling team every month to talk about the things that parents need to know when it comes to preparing their high schoolers to get into and succeed in college. And because not everyone's going to college, we often talk about preparing them to launch into a successful career, much like the leadership team there at SCVi is doing. Today, we've got our lead academic counselor, Kathy Rosenast. I've known Kathy for well over 30 years, and I'm excited that she joined the iLead team after a long and successful career as an educator and counselor with the William S. Hart High School District. She supports all of the counselors at our 6 iLead schools and has become an expert in college admissions. Kathy, welcome to Eye on the Valley.
Hi, good morning, Matt. How are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. Good morning, and thanks for joining me. So, Kathy, I've been talking about it all morning. You know, that dreaded F word that so many parents of high schoolers are stressed out about. I'm talking about FAFSA, F-A-F-S-A. Why is the FAFSA so important, and why are so many parents afraid of it?
Well, you know, Matt, it's funny. When I went to school, and even when you went to school, it really didn't exist. And so It's become a really great tool for our kids these days. FAFSA actually stands for a free application for federal student aid. And it's the official paperwork, form, digital page, whatever, however you want to look at it, that our kids and our families sign up to get money to go to college. And it's not just college. It can be trade school. It can be community college. It can be a specialty school like a culinary. There are million different ways to use that FAFSA, and it helps with our career training programs and our college preparedness and our career molding for each and every one of the kids in the community. It's important because it reduces the cost of college.
Uh-huh.
A lot of times people think, oh, I make too much money, I can't do it. Absolutely not. Everybody should fill out the FAFSA. It's no longer frightening. It's quick, it's fairly quick, it's easy, and you can do it all online.
You know, Kathy, you mentioned something very important. It is very quick and easy. That wasn't always the case. My son graduated high school in 2020, and he was applying for colleges around the country, and he needed to fill out the FAFSA, needed me to fill out part of it. And as recently as 2020, it was not easy, Kathy, but he took a bit of a hiatus and went back to college this year, and so we needed to fill it out again. And it was crackerjack. Took me maybe 5 minutes. It has gotten so much easier, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. In fact, Matt, it went from when my kids were in school, which is a little bit longer ago,
okay,
from like 14 or 15 pages that if you made a mistake after you'd sent it in, it was a disaster, to online, digital. It's a beautiful thing. I mean, everybody needs to apply, but it is. It's quick. It's easy. It's pretty painless, too.
Okay, so you talked about who should apply. Pretty much everybody who's got a kid who's coming up on high school graduation should be filling out the FAFSA. But what information or documents are needed? So when I'm ready to sit down to fill out the FAFSA with my kid, what should I have with me?
Well, the first thing you need to do is both the parent and the child need to, or the individual, need to create an FSA ID, which is a federal student aid application. And for that, they go to the website and they do their name, their birthday, their social security number, email address, phone number, and mailing address. At that point, if everything matches up correctly and you've made no typos, you get an ID number almost immediately. And in order to fill out the FAFSA, you need to have that ID number, and your parent or parents need to have
Okay,
so you get that taken care of first.
All right, so simple answer, but it's kind of a two-step process. You need to get your FSA ID number, and that's what you need to fill out the FAFSA. And in order to get that, you basically just need to know your basic information, right? Your name, your address, your social security number, that kind of stuff. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward.
Now, when you go in to do the FAFSA application, you need to make sure that you're going to confirm your social security numbers. Sometimes it'll ask you for a driver's license if you have that. You have to input your FSA ID. And then it's going to ask, what used to be the toughest part was your federal tax information from the previous year. But now you give your approval and it is digitally pulled from the IRS. And so you don't have to really do much of that except for maybe, depending on your status, confirm information. And then you might have some additional bank accounts, 529 accounts, something like that you may have to put in as well. Then you're going to list up to 20 schools you're interested in applying to.
Okay, very cool, very convenient. So you don't have to upload your income tax information anymore. You're just given one department in the feds, another department in the feds, permission to share your financial information. So families need to know that that's a thing. Kathy, talk to me about timelines. When should I start applying? When can I apply? And then what happens after I submit my FAFSA?
Okay, so the FAFSA October 1st. Last year was a little bit late, but this year it opened on October 1st. The sooner, the better.
Oh.
There's lots of things that are money that goes to apply. So like your money can get used up. You traditionally have till about March 1st. I tell all my kids, try to have it in by the beginning of the year, because that way you're going to have the best opportunity to get the most information. And it also allows colleges to look at your information and create financial packages for you down the road. The best way to apply once you start is to go onto the website and do it digitally, because it's also the safest. But you can also do it by paper in some instances, but it takes a very long time and it's really not very good. The advantage of doing it online is if down the road you realize there's a mistake or you need to change something, you can go in and make adjustments. And then once you it processes it, reviews it, it tells you, looks for completeness, accuracy. It may, if you make a mistake, it could notify you. And then you receive a report that gives you what they feel is your expected family contribution. So what they think that you can afford.
Right.
That's not always what we can afford. But for
Tell me about it.
example, you want to go somewhere that costs $90,000, and they look at all your information and they say, okay, well, we think you can afford to pay $30,000 of that. So the theory then is that they're going to come up with the $60,000. Somewhere it's going to come up with that money so that you would only have to pay $30,000. Now, a lot of people look at that and go, yeah, I can't. True.
I don't have an extra 30 grand laying around, Kathy.
Yeah, right. No, me neither. I got maybe $3,000.
Okay.
But it will come back and give you that information, at which point then you can reevaluate. You can look at what you have, and you can make some decisions at that point. Once that comes back and it's all clear, then they start sending it to those schools on your list.
Yeah.
And that information allows the schools to create financial aid packages for you that will allow you to attend their university.
And Kathy, again, I know this by experience. That is a valuable piece of information to have, to know exactly what it's going to cost you and which school you and your family can or cannot afford, or how much you're going to have to take out in student loans if this is the school that you want to go to. One of the things that was fascinating to me, Kathy, when my son and I originally filled out his FAFSA, is, he applied for a couple of state schools here in California, and then he applied for a couple of small private liberal arts schools, one of them, Thomas Jefferson, on the East Coast, that has a really high sticker price. But once we filled out the FAFSA, they sent it over to Thomas Jefferson, and they kind of looked at my kid's profile. All of a sudden, that sticker price started coming down, and it shocked me, Kathy, that small private school on the East Coast was actually cheaper than an in-state state school here in California.
You know what, Matt, you're 100% correct. And another part of that to look at is most of those schools will also get you out in 4 years. And some of our California public universities and state schools, it will take 5 years to get through because they are so large. So now multiply that number of times that you have to pay to the California schools by 5.
Right.
And look at that price versus what the private school is going to give you. And in a lot of cases, those smaller liberal arts schools or out-of-state schools or whatever are going to be able to be more financially.
Yeah, that was me, Kathy. I graduated CSUN on that 5-year plan. I've got my 5-year degree. So how do they do that, Kathy? How do schools use my FAFSA information to determine what types of financial aid that I'm even eligible to receive?
Well, when you do that, your financial aid, the estimated family contribution is figured. And then they take the cost of attendance and subtract your estimated family contribution, and they come up with what they call cost of attendance for you. And that usually includes room and board, books, supplies, transportation, and personal expenses. There's a big ticket number. And then schools start to combine a variety of different aid to help you meet your needs. And even kids with little to no need can qualify for merit-based scholarships. But if they don't do the FAFSA, most colleges won't even consider them for merit-based, which is the other reason it's really important to do the FAFSA. Now, you got to remember something. It's not just a loan or a scholarship they're going to give you. You can there's Pell Grants, which, are for more a needier supplement. There's opportunity grants, federal opportunity grants for different areas. There's state and school grants. There's scholarships. Work study is a huge part of the FAFSA program. You can get 20 hours a week of work study, which at the end of the year could accumulate to $10,000 or $11,000. And then there's 2 different types of federal student loans that they give you, and they increase as you continue through your college experience. Those are the direct subsidized loans, unsubsidized loans.
Okay.
Subsidized loans are need-based, where the government pays your interest until you graduate.
Okay,
Unsubsidized loans are not need-based, and you have to pay the interest.
Got it. That makes sense. So every college senior that is even thinking about going on to college needs to be filling out that FAFSA. Starting October 1st, the window is already open. Get it done before the first of the year. Kathy, we've got about 30 seconds here. If families need help with their FAFSA, where can they get support?
The best place to start is your high school guidance counselor.
Okay.
That is the person who can direct you to what your need is. FAFSA also, the federal government also has toll-free numbers. You can call and talk to people. There are workshops they offer, financial advisors. But if it were me, the first place I would start with my questions are the high school guidance counselors. They are the best source when you start out.
Great advice, Kathy. Thank you so much for joining us. We will talk to you real soon. Coming up next, we've got Mia Tretta. She is a survivor of the Saugus High School shooting 6 years ago today. She's going to share her experience as well as an event to commemorate that tragic day. I am Matt Watson. You're listening to SCVi and I Lead Schools Eye on the Valley on your hometown station, KHTS. Welcome back. You are listening to KHTS, your hometown station, 98.1 FM and 1220 AM. This is Matt Watson, and you are listening to SCVi and I Lead Schools Eye on the Valley. Today is November 14th, 2025, and that date has quite a significant distinction. It is we are exactly 6 years after the tragic shooting that took place at Saugus High School. My son was a senior at Saugus High School on that day. Mia Tretta was a freshman, just 15 years old, when a classmate who she didn't even know pulled a 45 caliber semi-automatic handgun assembled from a kit and lacking a serial number and legal registration, commonly known as a ghost gun, from his backpack and opened fire. Mia was shot in the stomach that day. 2 of her classmates, including Mia's best friend, were killed, and 2 others were injured before the gunman killed himself. The entire ordeal lasted only 16 seconds, but it's had an indelible impact on our entire community. Mia Tretta, welcome to Eye on the Valley.
Hey, thank you so much for having me. I am happy to get to talk with you today.
Mia, we're grateful that you called in, and I know that you've been rather outspoken, but I'm also sensitive to the fact that that today can be a bit of a difficult commemoration for you. I mentioned the events that morning and the tremendous impact that they've had on all of us, but I can't imagine what you and your family, as well as the other victims and their families, have been through these last 6 years. I thank you for having the courage to join me this morning, as well as your commitment to not only never forget you and the other victims, but also to work toward the goal that no other family or community in America ever have to experience that again. So I want to start here, Mia. If you're okay with this, can you just tell me what you recall from that day 6 years ago today?
Yeah, I mean, I was a freshman at Saugus. I had just barely gotten started. I loved school. I loved my friends. My best friend, Dominic Blackwell, and I had our secret handshake we'd do every morning, and I felt like I was really a part of the community at Saugus. I was in choir and just really loved my classes and loved going to school every morning. And Thursday, November 14th was no different. I came to school eager and ready. I had a Spanish test I was determined to do better at than Dominic. And I came into school, got a phone call from my mom about volunteering at a homeless shelter the following week. And as I was just talking with my friends, talking about who's asking who to the Sadie Hawkins dance that weekend, and we heard a loud bang. And unknowing what it was, I fell on the ground. And fortunately, I was able to get up and run across campus to my favorite teacher's classroom, Miss LaJusa. And it wasn't until I was in her classroom where I realized I had been shot. I told people in my room with me. They got me down on the floor to hold pressure. And I was ambulanced from Saugus to Central Park and from Central Park to Holy Cross Hospital. And it was there that I realized, or they told me, I was shot in the stomach with a 45 caliber ghost gun. And by a boy I didn't know, and my best friend, Dominic, was killed, along with Gracie and Muehlberger. And just like I'm sure everyone listening to this radio show who has a connection to Saugus, it is the most impactful day of our lives and the worst day of all of our lives. And it has impacted my everyday since then. And the fact that our community for so long was so broken and was missing two puzzle pieces of what was Santa Clarita because of this tragedy, it's something that you can't shake.
Yeah, I'm with you. Gosh, I can't even imagine. And I was personally touched by what happened. By no means comparing to what you and your family have been through, but it's been incredible. Now, after the shooting and your recovery, you began to take action, right? Can you tell us about the path that you've chosen for yourself over the past 6 years?
Yeah, I mean, I found very quickly that I felt bad, whether I was sitting at home being sad or if I was out trying to make sure that this didn't happen to other people. Mm-hmm. So, especially surrounding ghost guns, which were, at the time, not a common phrase in everyday households, but also the fastest growing public safety threat in our country. I was able to raise awareness with organizations like Everytown for Gun Safety, Brady Unify, San Diego Promise, and just kind of do whatever I could to get ghost guns off our streets. Because at the end of the day, for me at least, I felt like ghost guns were an obvious loophole that needed to be closed. And that's what kind of drew me into this activism space, was that there's so much that can be done about gun violence, whether you be a policymaker, a lawmaker, or someone who's in the medical field or a teacher. Everyone has their own piece of preventing gun violence that they can be doing in their everyday life. And I want to do whatever I could as a survivor, as someone who had a story, as a student, and as now an advocate, to make sure that there aren't more people like me sitting in their hospital beds uncertain what to do, and more people who have to go back to school to a broken community, to teachers who don't know what to do, to parents who are lost and confused on how to guide their children. After a shooting like this, no one really tells you what you should and shouldn't do. There's no handbook that you get as soon as it happens. And I think, at least for me, for so long, when you're a kid, and I was 15 years old, you're told to look up to people like your parents, look up to your teachers, and look up to the grown-ups in your life. But these types of shootings are something that no one is skilled or no one is prepared to help guide someone through. And you're looking to these people who have always been kind of pillars in your life, and even they're lost and they're confused, rightfully so, because this is not supposed to happen. No one is supposed to go to school expecting to take a Spanish test and get shot in the stomach. No one should go to school and not be able to come home that night because they were shot and killed in the quad of their high school.
Yeah.
These are not normal things that should happen, especially in America and especially in, high school, that you sign up to go to school so you can learn, not so you can be killed. And I think that no one is really prepared to deal with that. And my way of kind of forging my own path of my new normal post-shooting was activism. It was connecting with people from across the country who had similar experiences happen to them. And overarching, it was making sure that I do whatever I can to prevent this from happening to someone else.
And thank you so much for playing that role. You bring up something interesting, right? Those folks that you look to for guidance, parents, teachers, coaches, they don't have a playbook for this kind of thing. Have you contacted other survivors of school shootings, whether it's to connect, get guidance or advice? Have you spoken with anyone else who is in a similar situation to your new reality?
Yeah, I mean, that was some of the first advocacy work I did was with a group called San Diego Promise. And one of my first bigger events was the Teenage Dream public service announcement, where victims of gun violence came from across the country together from different high schools and elementary schools and middle schools, and sang and played on the piano this song called Teenage Dream by Katy Perry. And it was all about how the teenage dream has and never will be to be shot in your school. And I was able to meet so many people through that and been able to stay connected with them over the years. I'm also a part of something called the Everytown Survivor Network, which connects survivors from across the country, not only from school shooting violence, but domestic violence, community violence, urban violence. And I've been able to connect with a lot of people through that as well, which I have really enjoyed. And I've also been able to, since then, be on the other side of things of mentoring people who have more recently been shot and talking through with, frankly, kids what my next steps look like and how obviously that's not the same for everyone, but here's what I did. Here's what my journey kind of looked like, and talking about how specific school shooting violence is and how it really doesn't relate to any other type of trauma, because you have the grief of losing your friend. You have the grief of losing who you used to be. You have the stolen innocence from you. You have the fact that this home base school, which you sometimes spend more time at than your actual home, it's no longer safe. This place that you now have to go back because continuing your educational journey is not an option. Like, you can't just not go to school anymore. I couldn't just finish as a freshman. And how you can't let this define your life. I've kind of come to terms with the fact that being a school shooting survivor is a big piece of my identity. That does not mean that it defines who I am. It didn't stop me from going to college. It didn't stop me from finishing high school. It didn't stop me from moving across the country. It is something that I carry with me that impacts my daily life, but it doesn't stop me from doing anything unless I let it. And I've been able to kind of guide different survivors and been guided by different survivors on how to do that, because that's not easy. It is so easy to let this terrible, terrible thing that happened to you ruin your life. And that's obviously not something that we want to do.
Gosh, Mia, your strength is so incredibly inspiring. Not only that you're willing to stand up and find your own way forward, but advocate to try to make sure that this doesn't happen to others, that others don't have to go through what you've been through, and then also mentoring those who tragically have gone through what you went through later on. Mia, I've got a couple more questions I want to ask you, but I don't know about you. I just kind of need to catch my breath real quick. So we're going to take a quick commercial break. Can you stick around for a few more minutes?
Sounds great. I'll see you after that.
Okay, fantastic. Mia Toretta is a survivor of that tragic day 6 years ago, November 14th, 2019, at Saugus High School. More with her when we get back. I'm Matt Watson. This is SCVi and iLead Schools Eye on the Valley. You're listening to your hometown station, KHTS. Welcome back. You are listening to KHTS, your hometown station, 98.1 FM and 1220 AM. I am Matt Watson. You are listening to SCVi and iLead Schools Eye on the Valley. And this morning I am joined by Mia Toretta. Mia is the survivor of one of the survivors of the Saugus High School shooting that took place exactly 6 years ago today, November 14th, 2025. And before the break, Mia shared a bit about what she recounts from that day 6 years ago, as well as what she's been doing since then. Mia, I did a little bit of a deep dive on the statistics last night as I was preparing to talk to you. In 2019, the Saugus shooting was one of just 61 shootings, school shootings in America. 61 that year. And other than during the pandemic when kids just weren't on campus, there really hasn't been much of a decline at all since then. So Mia, you've spoken to a lot of folks. In your opinion, what is it going to take to get this under control? I know a few years back you visited President Biden in the White House. What do you say to politicians, to other policymakers about preventing school violence?
Yeah, I think that, first of all, gun violence is a completely nonpartisan issue. There is no person, in my opinion, who should be saying Yeah, we should have more gun violence. Gun violence prevention is everyone's cause. And for me, I think there are so many ways to go about this. It's such a comprehensive issue that kind of encapsulates so many different parts of life. But the easiest one is safe storage, ensuring that every single person who owns a firearm is safely storing it,
okay.
And up to regulation as well, making sure that their firearm cannot get into the hands of someone who is not them and someone who is not going to use it for good. We also need more comprehensive background checks. And in my opinion, if you are against background checks, it's probably because you can't pass one. No law-abiding citizen who can pass a background check, who doesn't have a criminal history and doesn't have criminal intent for their firearm, should have no problem with red flag laws or background checks, comprehensive background checks, that is. No problem with safe storage if you're going to safely store your firearm. These are plain and simple common sense laws. I also think that high-capacity magazines and assault weapons need to be limited and need to be banned in our country. They should be specifically for police and military use. I personally want our police to be able to protect us and be able to do their jobs, and they were not able to do that in Uvalde because they were scared of the type of weapon that the shooter had.
Oh, wow.
Our police needs to be the more powerful entity in that situation. And the way to do that is by making sure that citizens like me or you or a shooter at Uvalde cannot obtain these weapons of war that their sole purpose is to kill as many people in as short a period of time as possible. I also think that making sure that schools have appropriate safety measures, safety precautions, and mental health resources for their students. Gun violence prevention takes every single sector, and that's not just gun laws. And it's a comprehensive issue that all of us need to work on. I am doing an event next week at Brown about how medical providers in their patient interactions can be starting the conversation about gun violence and how the fifth vital sign really should be, do you own a firearm? Is it safely stored? Giving them information and access about here's why we safely store our firearms. Here's what is important about safe storage, because giving that information can really open someone's eyes to things like a school shooting or things like putting their own family at risk and at danger for suicide, for lots of different types of violence, for unintentional shootings. And none of us want to put our own family in danger, and especially when a firearm is meant for something like home protection. So gun violence is everyone's cause, and gun violence can be worked into every single job there is in some way or another.
Okay, so it's a question of, okay, who are you? What's your area, your sphere of influence, and what are you doing
What's your role?
to help prevent this? And Mia, I have to tell you, I sat at my desk late last night staring at the statistics and questioning myself long and hard. Because I am an educator, I am a professional, I have influence in my 6 schools, but then I also sit on a local school board. And Mia, I had to look myself in the face last night and say, you know what, Matt, you're probably not doing enough. So what are you going to do moving forward? And so I'm going to challenge our listeners this morning to ask, who are you? What's your sphere of influence? And what are you doing to help make sure that that we stop this? Speaking of which, Mia, you're not the only advocate in your family. Your mother, Tiffany, has been quite active as well, and she's working with Moms Demand Action, and she's co-hosting a walk tonight in remembrance of the Saugus shooting. Can you tell us a little bit more about that event that's taking place tonight?
Yeah, my mom is the best. And they're hosting a walk at Central Park that will kind of, I believe it starts and ends at the obelisks. And it's really just a remembrance walk. It has nothing to do with, politics or anything like that. Anyone in the community can come. And it's just to make sure that the faces of Saugus aren't forgotten, because so many times, at least in my work, Saugus is not on everyone's mind. Almost everyone in the country, you mentioned Parkland, and they know what you're talking about. You mentioned Sandy Hook or Uvalde or Columbine. People's ears perk up. But if you mention Saugus, it's not everybody who remembers. And obviously, it's something that we'll never forget. Right. And wanting to make sure that we hold this at kind of the core of our community, that this happened. We are not going to forget the people who we lost. And it's something that can't just kind of be swept under the rug of Santa Clarita history. It's something that shapes our community. It's something that still impacts so many members of our community. And it's something that we can't stop talking about, because we can't let it happen again. The second that you completely erase it from SCV history and take it out of everyone's everyday vocabulary, it just opens it up to happen again. And we can't let our community be shattered. And that's kind of the point of this Remembrance Walk. It's through Moms Demand Action, who's a great organization. They do all the things I was kind of talking about before. I know they in particular have done a lot of work around safe storage. And this Remembrance Walk is just kind of another thing for them, and another thing for our community. And I'm excited that they're doing it.
Mia, you're absolutely right. We've got a long road ahead of us until we get to the point where school shootings are a thing of the past in America. But it's doable right here in Santa Clarita today. We can make sure that it never happens in our town again. And that's what it's about. Again, tonight at Central Park in Santa Clarita, 6 p.m. If you're looking out your window, yes, the event is happening, rain or shine. Our kids are worth it. Meet at Gracie and Dominic's obelisk. As Mia mentioned, no speeches, no politics, just community. Meet there. Walk together around the park, and end back at the memorial obelisks. If you're unable to walk, just show up. Just make sure that you're there, and never forget. Mia, before we let you go, I know you've gone on. You've made this an important part of your life in advocacy, but you're also doing some pretty great things there at Brown University. Is there anything else you want to share with us before we let you go?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I am always happy to come back to my community. I am in Rhode Island right now studying at Brown. I study policy and education, but Santa Clarita is my home, and California at large is my place. And I am not at Brown to forget about you guys, and I am excited to come back as soon as I graduate. But I just wanted to say that I hope that everyone is doing okay with the anniversary of the shooting. I know that every single member of our community was impacted by this day, whether you were personally touched like me, or it was someone you knew, or like you were saying, your son was on campus. Every single member of our community has a story of what was happening that morning, and I hope that everyone's doing okay. I hope that we can all come together to remember Gracie and Dominic, two beautiful, amazing members of our community. And I just hope that we all can, as you were saying, kind of look at ourselves, look at what our role is, and see how we can be fighting against gun violence, because this should not be normal, and this cannot happen again. So thank you guys so much.
Absolutely, Mia, and thank you for being that strength for so many of us. I can't believe that here you're giving me strength this morning, when it probably should be the other way around. Mia, thank you so much for joining us today on Eye on the Valley. Your bravery is truly remarkable. Your ability to turn tragedy into action at such a young age is just truly inspiring. Keep doing great things, and hopefully we'll talk again here real soon. You take care.
Have a good one.
You have a good one too, Mia, and to the rest of us out there. November 14th, 2019. Never forget. Remember, there's that commemoration walk out at Central Park tonight, led by Mia's mother, Tiffany. Central Park, 6 p.m. Again, rain or shine. Meet at Gracie and Dominic's obelisks. Hope to see you there. I am Matt Watson. This is SCVi and iLead Schools Eye on the Valley. Whew, we'll be right back. You are listening to your hometown station, KHTS. Welcome back. You are listening to KHTS, your hometown station, 98.1 FM and 1220 AM. I am Matt Watson, your host. You are listening to SCVi and I Lead Schools Eye on the Valley. Just had a very touching conversation with Mia Tereda, survivor of the Saugus High School shooting 6 years ago today. It just kind of takes your breath away a little bit. And, this is the point in the show where we typically bring my brother on and we goof off and we have trivia questions and things like that. We do have my brother on the line. Tony, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Matt. How are you?
I'm doing as well as can be. It's a somber day for our community. I know it's a somber day for you and your family. You and I talked about this. We're not going to goof off too much today. It just doesn't seem appropriate. But those folks that would listen to the show normally might be thinking, what in the world is he doing bringing his brother on today? But the reason I still wanted to talk to you today is because you've got a unique perspective on the date that we're commemorating today. I mentioned that my son Pars was a senior at Saugus High School back in 2019. Your daughter was also on campus this day. I don't want to re-traumatize you or my niece, but is there anything that you wanted to just reflect on or share when we talk about November 14th?
Yeah, Matt, thanks for asking. Obviously, it's been on my thoughts all week. I left the house this morning at about 3:45 and just drove to work in silence, just kind of thinking and reminiscing. And it's hard because Hannah was on campus that day, and she was in class. She had a 7 a.m. class, and so she was near the quad, and so she heard it, and it was rough. That day I was driving to work to one of our branches in Santa Paula, and when there were active shooting scares or any type of a drill, you and I both went to Saugus, Matt. We have a lot of connections there between administrative staff and teachers, and so there were a couple of people that I would text and say, hey, legit, should I be concerned? And the answer that I got on November 14th that day was real deal, can't talk. And then immediately started talking with a close friend who had a daughter on campus. And it was a rough day. I turned around and went back home. And when I got there, Hannah and 2 of her friends were in my living room, and it was just really, really quiet. And so Hannah and her friends, they still talk. They still have community. They still struggle on this day, as do all of us that were impacted. Yeah. But man, Mia's courage and she's an amazing person. Boy, she's strong.
Yeah. Like I said, just as we were wrapping up the conversation, can't believe that she's the one lifting me up and giving me strength this morning.
Right.
Tony, you did something pretty astute, given you and I's kind of unique connection to school shootings. You had the occasion to reach out to one of our cousins. For those that don't know Tony and I, even those that do, don't realize we've only got a few cousins. Tony, you and I have 3 cousins. That's it. I've got a good friend that talked about having close to 100 cousins. You and I are we're 2 of 5. But one of those cousins was on campus that day in 1999.
99, yeah.
For the Columbine shooting. And so in the days following the Saugus shooting, you reached out to our cousin Nick for some guidance. Can you share with our listeners what that conversation was like as you were trying to help support your daughter that was still dealing with this?
Yeah, so Nick was on campus on April 20th, 1999 in Columbine, and he knew one of the shooters, Dylan, pretty well. And so I was, after November 14th in Santa Clarita, the following week I had a business trip to Colorado. And so since I was in Denver, I asked Nick if I could take him out to dinner because I needed some answers. As a girl dad, right, you're trying to figure out any way you can make it feel better. And Mia said the right words. their innocence was ripped from them, and it was from Hannah. So I took Nick out to dinner at Texas Roadhouse in Denver, and I just asked him, I said, what can I do to help my daughter get past this? And he told me, he said, Tony, it's been 20 plus years, and I think about it every day still. And it crippled me. It crippled me. And he just told me, he says, there's people she can talk to. Make sure she stays close to her friends. Make sure she's true to herself. But it's there every day.
Yeah. Yeah. Tony, one of the interesting things that you brought back to me, and I'm so grateful you did. You're a good big brother, Tony. What you brought back to me from that dinner that you had with Nick is the idea that, Tony, your question was the wrong question. It was a false question, because as a victim, as someone who lived through this, you don't get past it. You deal with it. It becomes part of your reality forever. And it's, Mia called it her new normal. That's just what her reality is. This is something that you don't get past. So,
right.
Yeah, Tony, it's interesting, and I know you've got an interesting and unique perspective on this, so feel free to take this conversation a different direction. But knowing that I was going to be talking to Mia this morning, I did a little bit of a deep dive, and I looked up the incidence of school shootings in America by year, and what I found really did shock me, right? Because everyone kind of has their own frame, their own take on this. I found it really interesting as far as my reflection is, or my recollection, the idea of school shootings really did come to light kind of following that shooting at Columbine High School in Colorado. You mentioned our cousin was there. Now, of course, it didn't surprise me to find out that that was not the first school shooting in America. As I mentioned, even though it took place in April, it wasn't the first one that year. But I remember as this kind of became part of the national conversation, our parents, Tony, and a lot of folks of their generation were asking themselves the questions, what's going on? This wasn't a thing when I was a kid. And so I looked into that. This wasn't a thing when I was a kid. Yeah, it kind of was. Just this past Wednesday, 2 days ago today, was the anniversary of the first school shooting in America. Yeah, November 12th, 1840 was the first school shooting in America. Yeah, 1840. Wow. Think about that. That's almost 200 years ago. Charlottesville, Virginia, John Anthony Gardner Davis, a law professor at the University of Virginia, was shot and killed by a student there on campus. Now, 1840, yeah, that was a long time ago. Guns weren't, anyways, so I continue to read on. As you go through history, they continued to stay quite rare, going through the 19th century, that is the 1800s, folks. No more than 3 a year. Most years didn't see any school shootings, thank God. But there were, in the 1800s, there was 1, 2, maybe 3 a year, depending on the year that you go through. And then around the 1920s, those school shootings, that's where school shootings started becoming a little bit more prominent. In the 1920s, right? Still now 100 years ago. To our parents' point, to that generation's point, that things didn't happen like that when they were in school. I find it interesting. Tony, Dad graduated high school, I think, in 1966, right?
Correct.
12 school shootings in America that year. Mom graduated high school in 1967. Eight school shootings. So this kind of was a thing. And I'm not sure why it wasn't being talked about, why solutions weren't being worked on. And then I mentioned it when I was talking to Mia. 1999, the year of the Columbine tragedy, there were six school shootings in America. Kind of interesting. But then they really start to pick up in the 20 teens. So to the point where they're happening all the time. Yeah, they really start to pick up in the 20 teens, reaching an all-time high Yeah, you guessed it, in 2019, when there were 61 school shootings in America. Obviously, so that was 2019, the year of the Saugus shooting. But obviously, the following year, 2020, there was a significant drop. Kids just weren't on campus. But I do find it interesting. 2020, kids were only on campus until March, yet there were still 21 school shootings that year. 2021, kids didn't go back until later in the year, 36 school shootings that year. And then, with kids, I'm sorry, folks, I got to grab a tissue. 2022, kids back on campus full time, and we're right back up to 53, 60 in 2023, 56 in 2024. So this is something that's not diminishing. Mia continues to do her harrowing work, but it brings us to that question that I had to ask myself about. Had to ask myself last night. What are we doing about it? What are we doing to make sure that our schools are safe? Now, I am not sure exactly what the adjective is. Relieved. I'm somewhat happy. I am. You know what? I think it's grateful. It's the month of gratitude here in America. I am grateful to say that when you ask yourself that question locally, what are we doing about it? Our local schools can give you a pretty good answer. I'm happy to say that quite a bit has been done. I could go on and on about our iLead schools and all that our teams do every day to keep our schools safe. You heard earlier in the show about an event that we're having at SCVi. And again, I hope to see you all there. It's open to the public today. But I've been talking behind the scenes with all the different procedures and protocols we have in place to make sure that that event and our school is always safe. I know that our local school districts have worked closely with local and national agencies to ensure that they are as safe as possible. I've been part of the decision-making process in one of our local school districts in making sure that, for example, front doors and all exterior gates are locked all the time. As a school board member, I can't get on one of our campuses without identifying myself and being buzzed in. And that's just, that first layer of safety measures that our local schools are taking. But, and you know what, I do have to report to you, Santa Clarita, your schools are some of the safest in the country, because after November of 2019, we have done everything possible. We can continue to commemorate this date so that we make sure that we keep our eye on the ball to keep our schools among the safest in America. But what are we doing statewide? Because it breaks my heart when this happens in San Dimas, Sacramento, Texas, New Hampshire, all the other places around the country. Think about the numbers I just read. That's one a week. One school shooting a week is not okay. So what are we doing statewide? What are we doing in our national agencies? What are we doing nationally to make sure that we don't cut back, that we end school gun violence? Tony, I don't know if you've got anything to contribute. I've had the occasion to talk to many policymakers. I'm going to have the opportunity to talk to someone who is an elected official in Washington, D.C. in just a couple hours. And I'm going to ask him what he's doing about it. But I've had the occasion to ask school leaders and politicians what we're going to do, how we can stop this. And oftentimes they will give me an answer that starts with, well, Matt, I'll tell you what won't work. Arming America's teachers won't work. More laws restricting gun ownership won't work. You know what? Whatever we're doing right now is a textbook example of what's not working. And we need to realize that what we're doing right now is not working. I'm not asking what won't work. I'm asking what will work. And if the answer is you don't know, say it. I don't know, but this is what we're trying. Okay? Do something. We need to realize that we are a nation in crisis. And we've got to do something. We need to take action more than what we're currently doing. Mia and her mother and so many people like them are doing so much. But I'm sorry, I'm looking at the numbers, and it's not working. I know the past couple of decades has brought much greater awareness of mental health care in America, which is extremely important. I bang that drum here on my platform as often as I can. But what we're doing is still not working. 60 school shootings a year. It's not okay. I am among them. I don't have an answer. I don't know what needs to be done. But we need to do something beyond the usual rhetoric. I do know, and I've spoken with friends. It's interesting. Tony, you and I mentioned our kids being at Saugus High School in 2019, our cousin being at Columbine in 1999. I made a friend with a couple of educators, one of whom, they teach in Tasmania, of all places in the world. But that was the location of a mass shooting in 1996. The Port Arthur massacre in Australia. Her husband was I believe wounded in that shooting. Following 1996, Australians took action. They stood up and said, you know what, this is not okay, and we're going to do something. And yeah, of course, there's always debate, and there's still debate in Australia about what's done, what's continued to be done. And there have been, depending on the numbers you look at, Tony, Australia took action since 1996. Depending on the metric that you look at, there has been 1 or 0 mass shootings. The one mass shooting that there's been in Australia was a case of domestic violence. But other than that, there have been no mass shootings since the Port Arthur massacre, when Australia as a nation stood up and said, that's it, no more, we're going to do something. Now, that's Australia. I know it's a very different scenario than the United States of America. They are not the same, and what works in Australia isn't necessarily going to work in the United States. And I'm not even here to suggest that we should do something similar. All I'm saying is that Australia got fed up and took action. They did something. And it by all accounts, it worked. So when are we going to get fed up, America? Because Mia said it very poignantly. There is no two sides to this issue. There's nobody that favors school shootings. There's nobody that favors gun violence in our schools. So when are we going to come together and take action? Because I don't think we're doing enough. Like I said, I'm pretty sure that there's more that I could be doing. So I'm committing today to do more. What about you? What are you doing? Heavy show today, Big T. Heavy show.
It is a heavy show, and given the fact that Mia is a student at Brown, Matt, I'm glad we didn't keep her on for trivia, because she would have wiped you guys clean.
She'd have stomped us. She would have. But I'd have been honored to be in the same contest as her. Maybe someday, right, when the topic that we discuss is a little bit lighter, we'll have Mia back on and let her run circles around us.
One thing I just want to add, Matt, and it sometimes amazes me that we talked about innocence being taken away and how young they are, but you hear people like Mia and you hear people like Addie and our kids and what they've gone through, and between school being closed for wildfires, between the tragedy that happened 6 years ago, between COVID, and how much time and how much stuff that those Saugus kids went through.
Yeah.
The resiliency
we do have
that they have now, I mean, goodness gracious, they're going to be able to tackle anything.
Yeah.
They already have. They already have, and it breaks my heart that they had to go through all those things.
Mine too, Tony. I do have to interrupt you. Tony, we're up against the clock, man. Want to thank our guests, SCVi school directors Chad Powell and Martha Spansel-Pellico, head director for iLead Schools Kathy Rosenast, Saugus High School shooting survivor Mia Tretta. Thank you for joining us, friends. Join us next week. We'll talk soon.